The rain came down like angry fists that October night. Thunder rolled across the valley, shaking the small farmhouse windows. Lightning lit up the dark sky for just a second before everything went black again. Rosa stood at the wooden door, her heart beating so fast she could hear it over the storm. Water dripped from her hair down her face, mixing with the tears she couldn't stop. Her clothes stuck to her skin, heavy and cold. In her hands, she held a piece of paper that was getting more wet by the second. It was her only hope she had been. Walking for 3 hours, her feet hurt inside her old boots. The soles had holes in them, and every step felt like walking on broken glass. But she kept going. She had to. Winter was coming, and she had nowhere else to go. Just 3 weeks ago, everything was different. She lived in a small house behind the Wilson farm with her husband Carlos. They worked hard every day, picking apples and fixing fences. Carlos always said they would save enough money to buy their own little piece of land someday, would smile when he talked about it, his eyes bright with dreams. But dreams can break faster than glass. One morning, Carlos didn't come home from the fields. The tractor had rolled over. The doctor said he died right away, that he didn't feel any pain. But Rosa felt enough pain for both of them. The Wilson family was kind at first. They let her stay in the little house for 2 weeks. But then they needed the space for new workers. Mrs. Wilson gave her $20 and said she was sorry. Rosa packed her few things in an old canvas bag and started walking. She had tried for other farms before this one. The first place they didn't even open the door. She could see lights inside, could hear people talking and laughing. She knocked. Everything went quiet. She waited for 10 minutes before giving up. The second farm had dogs. Big, mean dogs that barked and showed their teeth. The owner came out and told her to get lost before the dogs got loose. She ran so fast she almost lost her bag. At the third farm, the man listened to her story. He even invited her to sit on his porch, but then he said he only hired men for farm work. He said women couldn't handle the heavy lifting. Rosa wanted to show him the muscles in her arms, wanted to tell him about all the work she had done.
Oh.
But she just nodded and walked away. The fourth farm looked empty. Broken windows, tall grass, a rusty mailbox hanging sideways. She realized nobody lived there anymore. Now she stood at the fifth farm, her last chance before the road ended. This house looked different. The paint was old, but not peeling.
Smoke came from the chimney.
Yellow light glowed from the windows, warm and inviting. A truck sat in the driveway, which meant someone was home. Rosa took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Not too soft, not too hard, just firm enough to be heard over the rain. Nothing happened. She knocked again, a little louder this time. Heart felt like it might jump out of her chest. She heard footsteps inside, heavy boots on wooden floors. The footsteps stopped right behind the door. A man's voice called out, "Who's there?" Rosa's mouth felt dry. Her English wasn't perfect, but she had practiced what to say. "Please, sir, I need work. I'm a good worker. Very strong." Silence. Then the sound of locks turning. The door opened just a crack, and she could see one blue eye looking at her. "It's late," the man said, "and it's raining." "What are you doing?" "Out here?" Rosa held up the wet paper in her hands. It was a letter from Mr. Wilson saying she was a good worker. "I have reference. I worked at Wilson Farm for 2 years. I can work hard. I can cook, clean, take care of animals. Please, I need job." The man opened the door a little more. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and kind eyes, but his face looked worried. "Where are you staying tonight?" Feet water pooled around her boots on the wooden porch. I have no place. My husband died. I lost my home. This is my last hope." The words came out in a rush, all mixed up with English and Spanish. She was so tired, so scared, so desperate. The storm seemed to get louder, as if the sky was angry at her too. "Please," she said again, louder this time. "My body is strong. I can work from morning to night. I can help with harvest, with animals. With anything you need, I won't cause trouble. Just need chance." She saw a woman appear behind the man. She had brown hair pulled back and wore a sweater. The woman whispered something to the man. Rosa caught a few words. Dangerous? Stranger children? She had heard these whispers before. People looked at her and saw someone to be afraid of, not someone who needed help. I understand you are careful, Rosa said, her voice shaking. But I am not a bad person. I am just a woman who lost everything. I work harder than any man. I promise you this. Lightning flashed again, so bright it made everyone blink. Thunder followed right after, loud enough to rattle the windows. The storm was getting worse. The man and woman looked at each other. Rosa could see them having a silent conversation with their eyes. Her future hung in the balance of whatever they decided. Please, she whispered, one more time, barely loud enough to hear. Just give me a chance to prove myself. The rain kept falling. The thunder kept rolling. And Rosa kept standing there, waiting for an answer that would change everything. The door opened wider, and the woman stepped forward. She looked Rosa up and down, taking in her soaked clothes and desperate eyes. For a moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was rain hitting the roof like thousands of tiny hammers. Come inside, the woman finally said. You'll catch pneumonia standing out there. Rosa couldn't believe it. Her legs felt weak with relief. She stepped through the doorway into the warmest, coziest kitchen she had seen in weeks. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. A pot of soup bubbled on the stove. Everything felt like home. Wait right there, the woman said, pointing to a spot near the door. You're dripping water everywhere. Rosa stood perfectly still, afraid to move or touch anything. She didn't want to make them regret letting her in. The man closed the door behind her and turned the locks. The sound of the storm became muffled, like a distant memory. The woman disappeared down a hallway and came back with a thick towel. Here, dry yourself off. I'm Helen, and this is my husband Robert. I am Rosa, she said, wrapping the towel around her shoulders. The warmth felt like a hug from heaven. Helen filled a mug with hot coffee and handed it to Rosa. The first sip burned her tongue, but she didn't care. It was the first hot drink she'd had in days. Mama, who's that? A young voice asked. Rosa looked up to see a boy, maybe 12 years old, peeking around the corner. He had his father's blue eyes and his mother's curious expression. This is Rosa, Helen said. She's caught in the storm. A girl appeared next to the boy. She looked about 14, with long brown hair and braids. Where did she come from? Enough questions, Robert said firmly. Go finish your homework. The children didn't move. They stared at Rosa like she was some kind of strange animal they had never seen before. Helen guided Rosa to a chair at the kitchen table. Sit down. You look ready to collapse. Rosa sat carefully, still holding the coffee mug with both hands. She could feel the family watching her every move. She had to be perfect. She had to show them she wasn't dangerous or dirty or anything they might be worried about. You said you worked at the Wilson farm? Robert asked, sitting across from her. Yes. Sir, 2 years. Me and my husband Carlos. Rosa's voice got quiet when she said his name. What happened to your husband? Helen asked gently. Rosa stared into her coffee mug. Accident. Tractor rolled over. 3 weeks ago. The kitchen went silent. Even the children stopped whispering. Sorry, Helen said softly. Rosa nodded but didn't look up. If she looked up, she might start crying again, and she couldn't afford to look weak. So you're looking for work? Robert asked. Yes, sir. I can do anything. I'm very strong. Rosa set down her coffee and rolled up her sleeve. Her arm showed muscles from years of hard labor. Small scars marked her hands from thorns and wire cuts. I worked in fields since I was 15. I know about crops, about animals, about fixing things. Helen studied Rosa's hands. Those look like working hands. Wilson Farm grows apples. I picked faster than anyone. 30 bags a day, sometimes 40. I also help with cows, with chickens, with everything. The boy whispered something to his sister. Rosa caught the word different. What can you cook? Helen asked. Rosa's face brightened. Everything. Mexican food. American food. I make the best tortillas. Fresh bread, soup from nothing but vegetables and bones. I can make food stretch to feed many people. We don't have much money for wages, Robert said carefully. I don't need much money. I need place to sleep, food, to eat, and work to do. That's all. Helen and Robert looked at each other again. Rosa could see them having another one of those silent conversations with their eyes. The harvest is almost over, Robert said. Winter's coming. There's not much field work until spring. Rosa's heart sank, but she tried not to show it. I can do winter work too. Fix equipment, repair buildings, take care of animals. I'm not afraid of cold weather. Where would you stay? Helen asked. Anywhere, barn, shed, anywhere with roof. I don't need much space. The children were listening to every word. The boy looked curious now instead of scared. The girl seemed more interested too. We've never hired anyone before, Robert said. It's always just been family working this farm. I understand, Rosa said, but maybe you need help. Farm work is hard, too hard for just 2 people and children. Helen stirred the soup on the stove. What would people say? Taking in a stranger like this, Rosa felt her cheeks get hot, knew what Helen meant. People would talk. They would say bad things about a Mexican woman living on their property. I keep to myself, Rosa said quietly. I work, I sleep, I don't cause problems. People don't need to know anything about me. It's not that simple, Robert said. But Rosa could hear something in his voice. He wasn't saying no. He was thinking about it. The girl suddenly spoke up. Mama, remember when the Martinez family helped us when Daddy broke his leg? Helen looked surprised. Lucy, that's different, is it? Lucy asked. They helped us when we needed it. Jose looked at the girl with new respect. This child understood something the adults were struggling with. Please, Rosa said one more time. Just give me 1 week. If I don't work hard, if I cause any problems, I will leave. But give me a chance to show you who I am. The storm outside seemed to pause, waiting for their answer. The next morning, Rosa woke up before the sun. She had slept in the small room above the garage, wrapped in blankets that Helen had given her. It wasn't much, but it was warm and dry. For the first time in weeks, she had slept without worrying about where she would be tomorrow. She dressed quickly and walked to the main house. Through the kitchen window, she could see Robert sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, reading a newspaper. He looked tired, like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. Rosa knocked softly on the back door. Robert looked up, surprised. You're up early, he said, opening the door. I always wake up early. Work starts with the sun.
Robert
poured her a cup of coffee. Helen still sleeping. The kids too. School doesn't start for another hour. Rosa sat down across from him. What needs to be done today? Robert looked at her carefully. You really want to work, don't you? Work is life. Without work, what am I? He nodded slowly. The fence in the north field is broken in 3 places. Cows keep getting out. I can fix fence. You have wire and tools? In the barn, but fence repair is hard work. Heavy posts, digging. Holes. ... Double quotes. Rosa stood up. Show me. They walked to the barn together. The morning air was crisp and clean after the storm. Everything smelled fresh and new. Rosa felt hopeful for the first time since Carlos died. The barn was full of tools and equipment. Some things looked old and worn out. Other things looked like they hadn't been used in years. Here's the wire, Robert said, pointing to a big roll. And the posts are stacked over there? Rosa picked up a post. It was heavy, but she lifted it easily. This is good wood, strong. She loaded the truck with posts, wire, and tools. Robert watched her work, saying nothing. Rosa could feel him testing her, waiting to see if she really could do what she promised. They drove to the north field together. The broken fence looked even worse than Robert had described. 3 sections were completely down. Posts were rotting, and the wire was tangled in knots. This is going to take all day, Robert said. Then we start now, Rosa replied. She began by pulling out the old posts. The ground was soft from the rain, which made the job easier. But the posts were heavy and awkward. Rosa used a special technique her father had taught her, rocking the posts back and forth until they came loose. Robert helped for the first hour, but then he had to go check on other things. Rosa kept working alone. She dug new holes with a post digger, making sure each hole was the right depth. Her back ached and her hands got sore, but she didn't stop. Around noon, Helen appeared with a sandwich and a bottle of water. "Robert said you've been working since dawn," Helen said. Rosa wiped the sweat from her face. "Fence is almost done. Just one more section." Helen looked at the work Rosa had completed. 2 sections of fence stood straight and strong, with wires stretched tight between the posts. "This looks professional," Helen said, sounding surprised. "My father was fence builder in Mexico. He taught me when I was a young girl." Helen sat on the tailgate of the truck while Rosa ate her sandwich. "Tell me about your family." Rosa's face softened. "My father built fences all over our state. People would call him when they needed the best work. He said a good fence is like a promise. Keeps what should be in and keeps what should be out." "What about your mother?" "She died when I was 16. Cancer. After that, it was just me and Papa." "Is your father still alive?" Rosa shook her head. "He died 5 years ago. Heart attack. That's when Carlos and I came to America. We wanted better life." Helen was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry you lost so many people." Rosa stood up and brushed the crumbs off her pants. "Life takes people away. But we keep going. We keep working. That's what they would want." She went back to work on the last section of fence. Helen stayed and watched, handing her tools when she needed them. "You work differently than most people," Helen observed. "How so? You take pride in it?" "Even fence repair. Do it like it matters." Rosa paused in her work. "Everything matters. If you're going to do something, do it right. Do it like your name is on it forever." By late afternoon, all 3 sections of fence were complete. Rosa had also fixed 2 gates that were sagging and replaced some loose boards in the corner posts. Robert came back just as she was loading the tools into the truck. "Well, I'll be," he said, walking along the fence line. "This is better than it was when it was new." Rosa smiled. It was the first real smile she had felt in weeks. "Cows won't get out now," she said. That evening at dinner, Lucy asked Rosa too. "Tell them about Mexico." Rosa talked about the mountains and the markets, about festivals with music and dancing. She told them about the food her grandmother made, how different flowers bloomed all year round. Even Robert seemed interested. "Sounds beautiful. Why did you leave?" "No work, no money. Carlos had a cousin here who said America had opportunities. We thought we could save money, maybe go back someday and buy land." "Do you still want to go back?" Lucy asked. Rosa looked around the kitchen table. These people had given her food, shelter, and a chance to prove herself. "I don't know. Maybe. America is home now." Robert nodded. "Well, that fence work today was impressive. If you're willing to keep working like that, I think we can figure out an arrangement." Rosa felt her heart jump. "You mean it?" "1-month trial," Robert said. "Room and board plus $50 a week. If it works out, we'll talk about something permanent." Rosa wanted to cry with relief, but she just nodded. "Thank you. You won't regret this." Helen smiled. "I think we won't." As Rosa walked back to her little room that night, she looked up at the stars. For the first time since Carlos died, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges, but tonight she had a home. 3 months had passed since that stormy night when Rosa first knocked on the door. Winter had settled over the farm like a thick blanket. Snow covered the fields, and ice formed on the water troughs every morning. But inside the farmhouse, things felt warmer than they had in years. Rosa had become part of the daily rhythm of farm life. She woke up before everyone else, started the coffee, and had breakfast ready by the time the family came downstairs. She knew exactly how Robert liked his eggs and that Lucy preferred her toast cut diagonally. She knew that Helen worried about money and that Ben dreamed of becoming a veterinarian someday. On this particular Tuesday morning, everything changed. Robert was outside checking on the cattle when it happened. Rosa heard Helen scream from the barn. She dropped the dish she was washing and ran outside without even grabbing her coat. She found Robert on the ground next to the big hay bales. His face was gray and he was clutching his chest. Helen knelt beside him, her hands shaking. A call. The ambulance? Rosa said quickly. I'll stay with him. Helen ran to the house while Rosa knelt down beside Robert. She had seen this before when her father had his heart attack. She knew what to do. Robert, look at me, she said calmly. Breathe slowly, in and out. Don't try to talk. Robert's eyes were wide with fear and pain. Rosa took his hand and squeezed it gently. You're going to be okay, she said. Help is coming. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. It was 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. Rosa rode with Helen to the hospital while the children stayed with their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. At the hospital, the doctor said Robert had suffered a heart attack. Not a huge one, but serious enough. He would need surgery and weeks of recovery. Time. What about the farm? Helen asked the doctor. Can't just leave everything. The doctor looked concerned. Mrs. Henderson, your husband needs rest. No physical work for at least 2 months, maybe longer. Helen started crying. Rosa put her arm around her shoulders. We'll figure it out, Rosa said quietly. But Rosa knew it wasn't going to be easy. Spring planting season was only 6 weeks away. The equipment needed maintenance. The fields needed preparation. There were cows to feed, chickens to tend, and 100 other jobs that needed doing every single day. That night, Rosa sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a notebook. She made a list of everything that had to be done between now and planting season. The list filled 3 pages. Helen came downstairs around midnight, unable to sleep. What are you doing? She asked. Making plans, Rosa said. We have a lot of work to do. Helen sat down across from her. Rosa, I don't know how we're going to manage. Robert does most of the heavy work. I help, but I don't know about tractors and equipment and all those things. Rosa looked up from her notebook. I know about those things. You do? My father didn't just build fences. Worked on farms his whole life. He taught me about tractors, about plowing, about when to plant and when to harvest. Carlos and I ran the Wilson farm machinery for 2 years. Helen stared at her. I didn't know that. You never asked? Rosa said with a small smile. But I know. And I can teach Ben and Lucy. They're old enough to help with real work now. Over the next few days, Rosa took charge of the farm operations. She woke up even earlier than usual and worked until after dark. She checked on the cattle, repaired a broken water pipe, and started servicing the tractor that hadn't run since last fall. Ben and Ben. Lucy came home from school each day to find Rosa working on some new project. At first, they just watched. But gradually, they started helping. Hand me that wrench, Rosa would say, and Ben would know exactly which one she meant. Hold this steady while I tighten the bolt, she'd tell Lucy, and Lucy would grip the metal. Peace, without being afraid of getting dirty. The children learned fast. Within a week, they could help Rosa with most of the daily chores. Ben turned out to have a natural talent for working with animals. Lucy was good with mechanical things. Just like her father, Helen spent most of her time at the hospital with Robert, but she saw what was happening at home. Rosa wasn't just keeping the farm running. She was making it run better than it had in years. She fixed the gate that's been broken for 6 months. Helen told Robert during one of her visits. Which gate? Robert asked. The one by the barn? No, the one that never latched properly. She took it apart completely and rebuilt it. Now, it works perfectly. Robert was quiet for a moment. She's doing all this by herself. Not by herself. She's got the kids helping. You should see Ben working with the cattle. And Lucy can change the oil in the truck now, when Robert finally came home from the hospital. He was amazed by what he found. The farm looked better than it had in years. Equipment that had been broken was fixed. Projects that had been put off for months were completed. Even the house looked different. Rosa had painted the kitchen while he was away. You didn't have to do all this, he told Rosa. Yes, I did, she replied. This is my home now, too. Evening, Robert called Rosa into his office. He had never asked her into his office before. It was his private space, where he kept his important papers and made his business decisions. "Sit down," he said. "We need to talk." Rosa sat in the chair across from his desk, wondering if she had done something wrong. "Rosa, I'd been thinking a lot while I was in the hospital. About the farm, about our family, about you." Rosa waited, not sure what was coming next. "This farm has been in my family for 3 generations," Robert continued. "My grandfather built it, my father expanded it, and I've been trying to keep it going. But I haven't been doing a very good job lately." "Done fine," Rosa said. Robert shook his head. "Oh, I haven't. I've been so focused on just getting by that I forgot about making things better. But you... you see possibilities I never saw." He opened a drawer and pulled out some papers. "I want to make you a partner in this farm," he said. "Not just a worker, a real partner. Someone who has a say in decisions and shares in the profits." Rosa couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You're not just anything," Robert interrupted. "You're the person who saved this farm, your family." Rosa felt tears coming to her eyes. Not tears of sadness this time, but tears of joy. "Are you sure?" she asked. Robert smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." It's outside, snow began to fall again. But inside the farmhouse office, Rosa felt like spring had already arrived. 2 years later, Rosa stood in the same doorway where she had once begged for help. But everything was different now. She wasn't the desperate woman in wet clothes anymore. She was Rosa Henderson, owner of Henderson Family Farm, wearing clean work clothes and boots that actually fit. The farm had grown and changed under her partnership with Robert. They had added new crops, bought better equipment, and built a small roadside stand that sold their produce directly to customers. The old red barn had been painted, and the farmhouse had a new roof. Everything looked prosperous and well cared for. But today, Rosa wasn't thinking about their success. She was thinking about the young man standing on her porch. It's like she had done 2 years ago. His name was Diego, and he had been walking for most of the day. His clothes were dirty, his shoes had holes, and he carried everything he owned. In a torn backpack, Rosa recognized the look in his eyes immediately. It was the same desperate hope she had felt that stormy night. "Please, Senora," Diego said in Spanish. "I need work." "Any work. I'm very strong," Rosa answered him in Spanish, which surprised him. "Where did you come from?" "Texas. I worked on a ranch there, but the owner sold it." "Jobs. Do you have any experience with farming?" Diego nodded eagerly. "Yes, Senora. Cattle, crops, equipment." "I can do anything," Rosa smiled. "Come inside. You look hungry?" She led Diego into the kitchen, just like Helen had done for her. The same warm smells filled the air. The same sense of home and safety surrounded them. Helen was cooking dinner when they walked in. She looked up and saw Diego, then looked at Rosa with understanding. "Another lost soul?" Helen asked gently. "Looks like it," Rosa replied. Lucy, now 16 and taller than her mother, came into the kitchen. "Who's this?" "This is Diego," Rosa said. "He's looking for work." Ben, 14 now and almost as tall as his father, appeared from the living room. "Are we hiring again?" Rosa had been hiring workers regularly for the past year. As the farm grew, they needed more help. But Rosa was careful about who she chose. She looked for people like Diego, people who needed a real chance, not just a job. "Sit down, Diego," Rosa said, pointing to the table. "Helen, can you fix him a plate?" Helen was already reaching for the leftover pot roast. She had learned from Rosa that hungry people needed to be fed first. Questions could come later. Diego ate like he hadn't had a real meal in days, which was probably true. Rosa watched him, remembering her own hunger from 2 years ago. "Tell me about the ranch in Texas," she said. Between bites, Diego explained that he had worked there for 3 years. He had started as a general laborer, but had worked his way up to handling the cattle operations. When the ranch was sold, the new owners brought in their own crew. "I have references," Diego said, pulling out a folded paper from his pocket. Rosa took the letter and read it. The ranch foreman had written that Diego was hardworking, reliable, and honest. It sounded familiar. Robert came in from his evening chores, walking a little slower since his heart attack, but looking healthier than he had in years. He saw Diego at the table and raised his eyebrows at Rosa. "Another one?" he asked with a smile. "Another one," Rosa confirmed. Robert had learned to trust Rosa's judgment about people. In the past 2 years, she had hired 6 workers. 5 of them had worked out wonderfully. One had stolen some tools and disappeared after 2 weeks, but Rosa said that was part of the cost of giving people chances. "What do you think?" Robert asked Rosa. Rosa looked at Diego, who was trying to eat politely, despite his obvious hunger. She saw something in him that reminded her not just of herself, but of Carlos, and quiet dignity that survived even in desperate circumstances. "I think we should give him a chance," she said. Diego looked up, his eyes bright with hope. "Really? You'll hire me?" "Not hire," Rosa said. "We'll give you the same chance someone gave me. 1 month to prove yourself, room and board, plus wages if you work out." Diego's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Senora. I won't disappoint you." Rosa stood up. "Come on, I'll show you where you'll be staying." She led Diego to the small apartment they had built above the barn. It was much nicer than the room where Rosa had first stayed. It had heat, running water, and real furniture. "This is beautiful," Diego said, looking around. "Everyone deserves a decent place to live," Rosa said. "But comfort has to be earned through work. Understand, yes, Senora? I understand." As they walked back to the house, Diego asked, "Senora Rosa, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you end up owning this farm? You're like me, aren't you? I mean, you came here looking for work too." Rosa stopped walking and looked up. At the stars. Same stars she had looked at 2 years ago when she first felt like she belonged somewhere. "Yes, I was like you," she said. "Desperate, hungry, afraid. I stood at that same door and begged for a chance." "What made them trust you?" Rosa thought about the question. "I think they saw that I wasn't asking for charity. I was asking for an opportunity to prove my worth." "There's a difference," Diego nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" "Because this isn't just about you anymore, Diego. Every person I hire reflects on me. If you succeed, it proves that giving people chances works. If you fail, it makes it harder for the next person." Diego's face grew serious. "I won't fail, Senora. I promise." "Don't promise me," Rosa said. "Promise yourself." Ow. Over the next few weeks, Diego proved himself just like Rosa had done. He worked hard, learned quickly, and never complained. He helped with the spring planting, repaired equipment, and even learned to speak better English by practicing with Ben and Lucy. One evening, as Rosa was finishing her paperwork in the farm office, Helen came in with 2 cups of coffee. "You know what you've done, don't you?" Helen said, sitting down. "What do you mean, you've started something? People in town are talking about the Henderson farm and how we give people second chances. Yesterday, Mrs. Patterson asked if we might have room for her nephew who just got out of rehab." Rosa looked up from her papers. "What did you tell her?" "Told her to have him come talk to you." Rosa smiled. "You know what Carlos used to say? He said that when you climb a mountain, you should always drop a rope for the next person." "Is that what you're doing? Dropping ropes?" Rosa nodded. "Everyone deserves a chance to prove what they're worth. I got mine. Diego got his. Maybe Mrs. Patterson's nephew deserves one too." Helen reached across the desk and squeezed Rosa's hand. "You know what I think?" "What?" I think that stormy night when you knocked on our door, you didn't just save yourself. You saved all of us." Rosa looked out the window at the farm she now called home. In the distance, she could see Diego checking on the cattle, the same job she had once done as a desperate stranger. "Maybe we saved each other," she said. That night, Rosa stood on the porch where she had once stood in the rain, begging for help. Now she owned half of everything she could see. More importantly, she had learned that success wasn't just about what you achieved for yourself. It was about what you made possible for others. Tomorrow, Mrs. Patterson's nephew would probably come looking for work, and Rosa would do what Helen and Robert had done for her. She would give him a chance to prove his worth. The cycle would continue. One desperate person at a time, one chance at a time, one success story at a time. Rosa smiled and went inside to plan for tomorrow. There was always more work to do, more people to help, more dreams to make possible. And that was exactly how she wanted it to be.